Dr. Amanda Hayes stared at the monitors in NASA's Deep Space Detection Center, her coffee growing cold beside her keyboard. The signal pattern she'd been tracking for the past 3 hours defied every known natural phenomenon. It was 3 a.m., and she'd already triple-checked her calculations. "Mark, get over here," she called to her assistant, Dr. Mark Reynolds, who was dozing in his chair. "I need another set of eyes on this." The young astrophysicist shuffled over, his disheveled appearance matching the chaos of papers scattered across their workstation. As he leaned in to study the readouts, his eyes widened. "That's not possible," he whispered, suddenly wide awake. The signal showed multiple objects decelerating from faster-than-light travel, their massive energy signatures lighting up the Kuiper Belt like Christmas trees. Whatever they were big, capital ship big, and they were headed straight for Earth. Within 20 minutes, the center was buzzing with activity. NASA directors connected via emergency video conference, military liaisons appeared in uniform, and the president's science advisor was on the line. Amanda found herself center stage, explaining what they were seeing to some of the most powerful people in the world. "The objects are maintaining perfect formation," she explained, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her system. "The level of control they're exhibiting rules out any natural explanation. Ladies and gentlemen, we are looking at artificial vessels." The room fell silent until General Matthews, Joint Chiefs Representative, spoke up. "How long until they reach Earth?" "At their current velocity, approximately 6 hours." The next few hours were a blur of activity. As the world's militaries went on high alert, Amanda and her team worked frantically to gather every scrap of data they could about the approaching ships. The objects made no attempt to hide their approach. Either they didn't care about being detected, or they wanted to be seen. At dawn, they got their first visual. The ships were massive, biological-looking constructs that seemed to swim through space. Their surfaces rippled with what appeared to be living armor, and their shapes reminded Amanda of Earth's deep-sea predators. The first transmission came just as the sun was rising over Houston. It filled every screen in the center, revealing a creature that looked like evolution's answer to the perfect hunter. The Kryvax Ambassador, as it called itself, towered over its surroundings, its iridescent scales shifting colors as it moved. Multiple eyes studied the camera, and when it spoke, its voice carried the confidence of a species that had never known defeat. "Inhabitants of Earth," it began, "you have the honor of being chosen for integration into the Kryvax dominion. Your world has been assessed and found worthy of our attention. Surrender now, and your species will be permitted to serve under our guidance." The response came from an unexpected source. Dr. Hayes, still at her station after hours of analysis, couldn't contain her laughter. The sound carried through the open channel, drawing the alien's attention. "You find your species' elevation amusing, human." The Kryvax ambassador's tone carried a dangerous edge. Amanda straightened in her chair, years of research and human history flowing through her mind. "No, I find your assumption amusing. You see those creatures in our zoos. The lions, tigers, and bears. They were once apex predators too. Now they do tricks for treats." The ambassador's scales darkened with what might have been rage or confusion. "You dare mock the Kryvax? We have conquered 1,000 worlds. And yet you've never encountered a species that turned their planet's apex predators into pets," Amanda replied, her scientific curiosity overtaking her fear. "Tell me, Ambassador, in all your conquests, have you ever met a species that not only survived on a death world, but transformed it? One that looked at predators and saw potential partners instead of just threats?" The silence that followed was deafening. In that moment, as humanity faced its first contact with an alien species, Dr. Amanda Hayes had done something no one expected. She'd made the galaxy's most fearsome predators question their assumptions. The Kryvax had come expecting to find prey, But they'd found something far more dangerous. A species that had already mastered the art of turning predators into partners. Captain James Walker crouched behind the remains of a Humvee, his squad spread out among the ruins of what had been downtown San Diego just hours ago. The Marines had been deployed the moment the Kryvax landing pods were detected, but nothing could have prepared them for what emerged from those pods. "They're moving up 3rd Avenue, sir," Sergeant Lisa Martinez reported through the comm, her voice steady despite the chaos. "At least 30 of their bioforms. They're not even taking cover." Walker peered through his advanced combat optics. The Kryvax combat forms were a nightmare of evolutionary engineering. 12 feet of rippling muscle, natural armor, and predatory grace. They moved with the confidence of apex predators who'd never known fear. "They think we're prey," Walker muttered, a grim smile forming under his helmet. "Let's teach them different. All units, execute Operation Thunderbolt." The plan was simple but effective, born from thousands of years of human military evolution. As the Kryvax strode down the street, hunting for their weak human prey, hidden sensors tracked their every move. Walker had spent the last 2 hours setting up his killing ground, just as his ancestors had once trapped larger, stronger predators. "Remember," he broadcasted to his unit, "they're tough, but they're predictable. They hunt like solo predators. No real unit cohesion, no proper tactical awareness. Use that." The first sign that something was wrong came when the lead Kryvax warrior stepped on what appeared to be ordinary debris. The high explosive charge underneath detonated, not to kill. These things were too tough for that, but to stagger and disorient. Before the aliens could recover, coordinated fire from multiple hidden positions raked their formation. Concentrated fire on designated targets only, Walker ordered as his Marines executed their attack. "Don't waste ammunition on their armor. Hit the joints and sensory organs. Make every shot count." The Kryvax response was exactly what Walker had predicted. Instead of coordinating their defense, each warrior reacted individually, charging toward the nearest source of fire. It was perfect predator behavior, and perfect for his trap. Second team, begin sonic assault. Modified LRAD systems, normally used for crowd control, activated at frequencies that human testing had shown to be particularly effective against the Kryvax's enhanced hearing. The aliens staggered, their coordination further disrupted as their superior senses became a liability. Third team, deploy the nets. Carbon fiber nets, electrified and weighted, launched from hidden positions. The Kryvax's natural armor, so effective against direct attacks, did nothing against the simple technology that humans had used to capture dangerous animals for millennia. Walker led from the front, coordinating the multi-layered attack while observing the Kryvax's responses. Each alien warrior was individually more powerful than any human, but they fought like tigers against wolf packs. All power, no coordination. "Sir," Martinez called out, "they're trying to regroup near the plaza." "Perfect," Walker replied. "Time for the final. All units, fall back to secondary positions. Initiate Protocol Omega." As the Marines made their tactical retreat, the Kryvax pursued, exactly as planned. The aliens charged forward, following their prey instincts, only to find themselves in the center of a prepared kill zone. High-powered spotlights activated, overwhelming their light-sensitive eyes, while synchronized explosions from multiple directions created a disorienting cascade of sound and pressure. In the confusion, Walker's Marines struck from all sides, their coordinated fire now targeting specific vulnerabilities they'd identified during the earlier exchange. The result was devastating, not because of superior firepower, but because of superior tactics and teamwork. When the dust settled, the street was littered with disabled and trapped Kryvax warriors. Walker's unit had suffered no casualties. "Control, this is Captain Walker," he reported, watching as his team secured the area. First engagement complete. Tell command that they're perfect predators, just got schooled by something they've never encountered before. Humans who've spent their entire history learning how to hunt things bigger and stronger than themselves. As if to emphasize his point, a trapped Kryvax warrior snarled at him. Walker just smiled, remembering the tigers he'd seen at the San Diego Zoo. Just as fierce, just as proud, and just as unprepared for a species that had turned hunting into a science. Lieutenant Emma Richardson lay motionless in the snow, her white ghillie suit blending perfectly with the Rocky Mountain terrain. The temperature had dropped to -20°F, but she'd trained for this. The Kryvax, however, hadn't. Target group moving through Morrison Valley, whispered Sergeant Tyler Brooks through their sealed comms. They're struggling with the altitude, counting 6 hunter forms. Emma allowed herself a small smile. The Kryvax had chosen the Rockies for their hunt, believing the harsh environment would give them an advantage. They'd never considered that humans had not only adapted to these conditions, but had turned them into training grounds. Copy that, she breathed, her words forming small ice crystals inside her mask. All teams, hold position. Let them come to us. Her team was spread across 3 miles of mountain territory, each member positioned at carefully selected points. They'd spent years training in these mountains, learning every ridge, every shadow, every wind pattern. The Kryvax, for all their bioengineering, were fighting against 14,000 feet of elevation and air so thin it made their enhanced muscles work overtime. Through her advanced scope, Emma watched the alien hunters move. They were magnificent in their own way, their bodies constantly adapting, scales shifting color to match the snowy terrain. But their movements were growing sluggish, their breathing labored. Their perfect evolution had never prepared them for this environment. Look at their formation, Emma transmitted to her team. They're still hunting like they're on a warm planet at sea level. Time to show them how real mountain predators work. She waited until the lead hunter stepped exactly where she'd predicted. In these mountains, there were only certain paths that offered solid footing. Humans had learned this through generations of mountain warfare. Execute Phase 1, she ordered. Private Jessica Miller, their demo expert, triggered the first sequence. Shaped charges, hidden in the snow, detonated in a precise pattern. Not to kill, but to trigger something the Kryvax had never experienced. An avalanche. The alien hunters reacted with perfect predator instincts, which was exactly the problem. They tried to fight the mountain itself, their enhanced muscles working against them as tons of snow and ice swept down the slope. Humans had long ago learned you don't fight an avalanche, you work with it. They're splitting up, Brooks reported, just like you said they would. Emma tracked the biggest hunter through her scope. Predator instinct. When confused, they fall back on solo hunting patterns. Teams 2 and 3 engage as planned. Across the valley, her soldiers began their hunt. They used methods perfected by mountain warriors throughout history, appearing and disappearing like ghosts, using the terrain to channel their prey, conserving energy while their targets exhausted themselves. The Kryvax hunters, used to being the apex predators, made classic prey mistakes. They sought higher ground, not realizing they were being herded into kill zones. They tried to use their superior senses, not understanding how the thin air and extreme cold distorted sounds and scents. Emma lined up her shot on the lead hunter. Her rifle was loaded with special rounds developed after studying Kryvax biology. Another example of how humans turn scientific understanding into a weapon. All units, execute final phase, she ordered, then pulled the trigger. The shot was perfect, striking a weak point in the alien's natural armor that only existed in high-altitude, low-temperature conditions. The hunter went down, and the others reacted exactly as predicted. They charged toward the threat, walking right into the rest of her team's crossfire. In less than 10 minutes, it was over. 6 of the galaxy's most perfect predators lay disabled in the snow, defeated by what they'd dismissed as primitive projectile weapons and simple tactics. Emma finally rose from her position, her joints stiff from hours of absolute stillness. As she approached the fallen lead hunter, its eyes tracked her with a new emotion she'd never seen in a Kryvax before: respect. "Welcome to the Rockies," she said, her voice carrying across the now silent valley. "Next time, maybe do your homework. Humans don't just survive in death worlds. We turn them into playgrounds." Colonel Michael Wolf Harrison stood before the holographic display in the underground command center, watching red dots representing Kryvax forces move across the global map. 3 months into the war, and the aliens still hadn't realized they'd become part of the greatest military experiment in human history. "Sir," Major Rachel Anderson called out, "the Brazilian team just reported success with the modified tactics. The Kryvax lost an entire hunter pack in the Amazon." Harrison nodded, adding another data point to their growing understanding of Kryvax combat behavior. "Add it to the neural network. How long did it take them to adapt this time?" 43 minutes, sir. That's 12 minutes slower than their previous adaptation rate." A grim smile crossed Harrison's face. The Kryvax were learning, but they were learning the wrong lessons. Every time they adapted to one of humanity's tactics, they actually fell deeper into the real trap. "Update from the Russian front," Lieutenant Kevin Parker announced. "They've successfully replicated the synthetic pheromone strategy. The Kryvax combat forms are starting to show signs of confusion in their command structure." Harrison moved to another display, this one showing detailed analysis of Kryvax biology. "They think they're studying us," he mused, "but we're the ones running the real experiments. Every engagement is a data point, every battle a test case." The colonel had transformed the global resistance into a vast laboratory. While the Kryvax relied on their evolutionary advantages, humanity was doing what it did best: learning, adapting, and innovating at an unprecedented rate. "New contact." Captain Sarah Foster's voice cut through the command center. "Multiple Kryvax signatures detected in the Singapore defense zone. They're using the new attack pattern we predicted." "Perfect," Harrison responded. "Deploy counter-strategy Delta. Let's see how they handle their own tactics being used against them, but better." On the main screen, blue dots representing human forces moved with surgical precision. They'd studied how the Kryvax hunt, then improved upon it. Where the aliens relied on individual prowess, human forces worked in perfect coordination. Where the Kryvax used brute force, humans applied calculated precision. "Sir," Anderson interrupted, "we're getting reports of a new Kryvax bioform in the field. They've modified their hunter units based on their encounters with our forces." Harrison walked to the central platform, his expression intense. "Show me." The hologram shifted, displaying a new type of Kryvax warrior. It was smaller, faster, more agile than their previous forms. The aliens had finally started to adapt, but they were still missing the point. "They're making the classic apex predator mistake," Harrison explained to his staff. "They're evolving to fight the last battle, not the next one. Each change they make is predictable, because they're following a linear path of evolution." He gestured to another screen showing human tactical innovations. "But we don't evolve like that. We don't just get better at what we do. We change the entire game. Every time they adapt, we don't just counter it. We transform it into something they've never seen before." The Singapore battle was now in full swing, and the results were telling. The new Kryvax bioforms found themselves fighting against tactics that seemed familiar but had been twisted in ways their rigid combat programming couldn't process. "Confirmed kill count rising," Foster reported. "The neural network's predictions were 97% accurate. They're falling for every counter we developed." Harrison watched as the red dots on the map began to fade. The Kryvax had created the perfect predator, But humanity had created something far more dangerous, a fighting force that treated combat like a science, war like an experiment, and every defeat as a data point for future victory. "Send word to all commands," he ordered. "Initiate Phase 3 of the adaptation protocol. Let's show these perfect predators what happens when they pick a fight with a species that turns evolution itself into a weapon." Dr. Rebecca Thompson stared at the holographic model of the Kryvax neural pattern, her eyes burning from 18 hours of continuous analysis. The underground lab at the Pentagon's Xenological Combat Analysis Division was littered with empty coffee cups and discarded notes, but she barely noticed the chaos. She was too close to a breakthrough. "Run the simulation again," she ordered the AI system. This time, cross-reference with historical predator evolution patterns from Earth species. Her team of scientists watched as the data streams merged, creating a complex web of behavioral analytics. Dr. Jason Mitchell, her deputy, leaned forward with interest. "Look at that pattern," he said, pointing to a recurring sequence. "It's almost like a great white shark's hunting algorithm," Rebecca finished. "But there's something more. Computer, add the neural mapping from the captured Kryvax commander." The hologram shifted, new layers of data interweaving with the existing pattern. Rebecca's eyes widened as the final piece clicked into place. "That's it," she exclaimed, nearly knocking over her coffee. "They're not just predators. They're perfect predators, and that's their fatal flaw." "I don't follow," said Dr. Laura Martinez. "They're xenobiologist. Wouldn't being perfect make them stronger?" Rebecca shook her head, already moving to the main display. "Perfect is the enemy of better. Look at their neural architecture. It's optimized to the point of rigidity. They've evolved such specific, perfect responses that they've lost the ability to truly adapt." She pulled up combat footage from recent battles. "See how they always follow the same basic patterns. Even their adaptations are predictable, because they're working from a fixed set of perfect responses. Like an overtrained AI," Jason mused. "So optimized for one thing that it can't handle novel situations." "Exactly." Rebecca's fingers flew over the controls. "Humans never achieved that kind of evolutionary perfection. We remained messy, adaptable. Our brains are filled with redundancies and seemingly inefficient pathways." The display now showed a comparison between human and Kryvax neural activity during combat situations. The difference was striking. The Kryvax patterns were beautiful, symmetrical, and predictable. The human patterns looked like controlled chaos. "Send this to command immediately," a new voice ordered. General William Andrews had entered the lab silently, watching the discovery unfold. "Sir," Rebecca acknowledged, "we can use this. Their perfect responses mean we can predict exactly how they'll react in any situation. More importantly, we can force them into situations their perfect programming can't handle." The general studied the display. "Can you weaponize this understanding?" Rebecca's expression was both professional and predatory. "Already have, sir. We've developed a series of combat protocols that deliberately trigger their perfected responses, then exploit the millisecond lag when reality doesn't match their programming." She brought up a new simulation. "Additionally, we found a way to disrupt their neural network's synchronization. They're so perfectly evolved that even minor disruptions to their expected patterns cause cascading confusion through their entire combat system. Like a perfect engine that seizes up if a single component is out of alignment," Jason added. General Andrews nodded slowly. "How soon can you deploy this?" "We already have," Rebecca replied with a slight smile. "The last 3 engagements were tests of our theory. That's why our success rate suddenly spiked. The Kryvax think they're fighting a primitive species, but they're actually fighting something they've never encountered. A predator that evolved to be imperfect, and therefore adaptable." She gestured to the final display. showing real-time updates from global combat zones. Every time they try to perfect their response to our tactics, we've already moved on to something new. They're playing chess. We're playing Calvin ball. The general allowed himself a small smile. The perfect predator, undone by its own perfection. Get this information to all combat commands. Let's show these aliens why evolution favored our messy, creative minds over their perfect, predictable ones. Admiral David Cooper stood on the bridge of the U.S. Artemis, Earth's first true space battleship, as hundreds of screens showed real-time data from the largest coordinated military operation in human history. The converted space station that served as his command center gave him a perfect view of both Earth and the approaching Kryvax fleet. All battle groups report ready, sir, Commander Anna Wilson announced, her hands dancing over the holographic controls. Chinese, Russian, and European squadrons are in position. Indian and Japanese forces are moving to secondary strike points. Cooper nodded, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. The Kryvax had finally brought their main fleet, expecting to find an easy target. Instead, they'd flown right into humanity's greatest strength, our ability to work together. Status of the quantum network, he asked. 100% operational. Admiral Lieutenant Robert Chen reported from the communication station. All 342 ships are linked and synchronized. The hive mind strategy is ready for deployment. The Admiral allowed himself a small smile. The Kryvax had expected to face primitive chemical rockets and crude space weapons. They weren't prepared for what humanity had achieved in the months since first contact. A neural-linked fleet that could think and act as one. Multiple Kryvax bioships entering optimal range, Wilson reported. They're forming into their standard hunt pack formation. Just as expected, Cooper mused. They still think like individual predators, even in space. Lieutenant Chen, initiate Protocol Omega. Let's show them what real pack hunting looks like. The battle began with a dance of light and shadow. The Kryvax ships, massive biological constructs that dwarfed human vessels, moved with deadly grace, but they moved as individuals, each captain seeking their own glory, their own kills. Execute Wolfpack maneuver, Cooper ordered. All ships engage quantum sync. Through the neural network, 300 human ships became one entity. Moves practiced in thousands of simulations came to life. Where the Kryvax had individual excellence, humanity had perfect coordination. Sir, they're attempting to counter with their new adaptive bioforms, Wilson called out. Too late, Cooper replied. They're still learning the last lesson while we're teaching the next one. All units, Phase 2. The human fleet split into precisely coordinated groups, each movement calculated to draw specific responses from the Kryvax. Their enemy's perfect predator instincts became a liability. Every time they reacted perfectly to one threat, they exposed themselves to 3 others. Multiple hits confirmed, Chen reported. Their formation is breaking down. They're starting to fight each other for targeting priority. Cooper watched as the Kryvax fleet's perfect coordination fell apart. Their ships, each trying to be the alpha predator, began to interfere with each other's attack runs. Meanwhile, the human fleet moved like a single organism, 300 ships fighting as one mind. Deploy the quantum mines, Cooper ordered. Show them why wolves hunt in packs. The space around the Kryvax fleet erupted with artificial gravity wells, herding them like sheep. Human ships struck from multiple angles, their attacks perfectly synchronized through the neural net. Where one ship had a weakness, others compensated. When one needed cover, the entire fleet adjusted. Sir, their command ship is trying to rally their forces, Wilson reported. And that's their final mistake, Cooper said. All ships, execute Prime Protocol Alpha. The entire human fleet moved as one, a maneuver that had taken months to perfect. 300 ships, moving in perfect harmony, created a pattern that no single mind could counter. The Kryvax command ship, for all its biological perfection, couldn't process the complexity of fighting an enemy that fought and moved as one. Multiple Kryvax ships disabled, Chen announced. They're retreating, sir. Admiral Cooper watched as the mighty Kryvax fleet, for the first time in their history, fled from battle. They'd come expecting to find prey, and instead found something their perfect evolution had never prepared them for. A species that had evolved not to be the perfect individual predator, but to be the perfect team. Major Sarah Anderson checked her team's neural-enhanced combat suits one final time as their boarding pod approached the massive Kryvax mothership. The suits were a perfect example of human innovation. Reverse-engineered Kryvax biotechnology, combined with human ingenuity and a healthy dose of, "What if we try this?" All systems green, Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez reported, his voice steady despite the tension. Biomimetic camouflage is functioning at optimal levels. The ship's defenses still think we're part of their own biological system. Sarah smiled behind her helmet. The Kryvax had created the perfect organic technology, but they'd never imagined someone would hack it like computer code. That was their problem. They thought biology was destiny. "Remember the mission parameters," she broadcasted to her squad of 12 elite operators. "We're not here to fight fair. We're here to prove why tools beat teeth every time." The boarding pod, itself a hybrid of stolen Kryvax tech and human engineering, seamlessly merged with the mothership's hull. The alien vessel's immune system accepted them as natural parts of its structure. Another innovation the Kryvax never saw coming. "Breach point secure," Sergeant Jennifer Hayes announced. "Their internal defenses are still blind to our presence. Dr. Thompson's neural masking algorithm is working perfectly." Sarah led her team through the organic corridors of the mothership, their suits adapting to match the surrounding tissue patterns. Each step was a victory of human science over alien evolution. "Movement ahead," Rodriguez whispered through the neural link. "Full hunter pack, at least 8 strong." "Perfect," Sarah replied. "Time to show them why being the perfect predator isn't always an advantage." Deploy the mimetic drones. Small devices, looking like nothing more than floating specks of biomatter, spread through the corridor. Each one carried a piece of the most devastating weapon humanity had developed, the ability to turn the Kryvax's own biology against them. The hunter pack rounded the corner, their enhanced senses searching for any threat. But they were looking for prey, for something to hunt. They weren't prepared for an enemy that had learned to speak to their ship's very cells. "Execute override pattern Delta," Sarah commanded. The drones activated, creating a cascade of biological commands that the Kryvax's perfect evolution had never prepared them for. The hunters froze, their neural networks overwhelmed by contradictory signals from what they perceived as their own biological systems. "Main control center, 300 meters ahead," Hayes reported. "Heavy resistance expected." Sarah nodded, watching as her team efficiently secured the stunned hunters. They're still fighting the last war. They've never faced an enemy that could turn their own perfection into a weakness. The team moved forward, each step demonstrating why human adaptability was more powerful than Kryvax evolution. When they encountered security membranes, they didn't fight them. They convinced the living tissue they were part of it. When biological defenders appeared, the team used reprogrammed pheromones to confuse them. "Control center in sight," Rodriguez announced. They're trying to evolve new defenses in real time." "Too late," Sarah said, deploying their final weapon. "They're still learning while we're already 3 steps ahead." The last battle for the mothership's brain was over almost before it began. The Kryvax controllers found their perfect biological systems turning against them, their neural networks overwhelmed by humans who had learned to speak their own language better than they could. Standing in the captured control center, Sarah sent the signal that would change the war forever. Command, this is Major Anderson. The mothership is ours. And better yet, we now have access to their entire biological database. Everything they ever learned about being the perfect predator is now in human hands. She looked at the captured Kryvax commander, seeing the dawn of understanding in its multiple eyes. You evolved to be the perfect predator, she said. But we evolved to be something far more dangerous, a species that can turn any weapon, even evolution itself, into a tool for our own growth. Director Thomas Riley of the United Earth Defense Force stood in the newly constructed orbital diplomatic chamber, Earth floating majestically behind him through the transparent hull. Before him stood the Kryvax High Command, the most powerful predators in the galaxy, now facing something they'd never encountered before, a negotiating table. Your terms are unexpected, the Kryvax Supreme Hunter said, its iridescent scales shifting in patterns that their cultural experts had learned to read as confusion. We anticipated either extermination or subjugation. That's because you're still thinking like apex predators, Riley replied, gesturing to the holographic display between them. But humanity learned long ago that the true mark of an advanced species isn't its ability to destroy competitors, but to transform them into partners. The display showed Earth's history, wolves becoming dogs, wildcats becoming companions, orcs becoming partners in building civilization. Each image a testament to humanity's unique approach to dominance. Admiral Cooper, would you share the latest analysis? Riley asked. The Admiral stepped forward, his dress uniform adorned with the new xenological combat medals. Our studies of Kryvax biology have revealed incredible potential for advancement, not just in warfare, but in medicine, space exploration, and environmental adaptation. Potential that the Kryvax themselves never explored because they were too focused on combat evolution. The youngest Kryvax leader, one who had faced humanity's adaptive tactics firsthand, moved forward. You would share such knowledge, even after we attempted to conquer you. Especially because of that, Dr. Rebecca Thompson interjected, joining the conversation. Your attempt to conquer us proved something crucial, that our species are actually perfect complements. You evolve for biological perfection. We evolve for endless adaptation. Together, we could achieve things neither of us could alone. Riley watched the ripple of reactions among the Kryvax leadership. They were beginning to understand what made humans the most dangerous species they'd ever encountered. Not our weapons or tactics, but our ability to see potential allies where others saw only enemies. Consider this, Riley continued, bringing up new holographic data. Already, our combined research teams have made breakthroughs in neural interface technology, biological computing, and space travel. What you see as defeat, we see as the beginning of a partnership that could revolutionize the galaxy. The Supreme Hunter's scales shifted to a deep, thoughtful blue. You would trust us, after everything. Trust isn't given, it's earned, Riley responded. But consider this. Every major predator species on Earth that learned to cooperate with humans not only survived but thrived. Those that couldn't adapt became extinct. We're offering you the same choice we've offered every apex predator we've encountered. Evolve with us, or be left behind. The chamber fell silent as the Kryvax leaders communicated through their neural network. Riley could see the moment the paradigm shift occurred. Their postures changed, their bioluminescence patterns shifted to new configurations. Your species is unlike any we've encountered, the Supreme Hunter finally declared. We evolved to be perfect predators, but you evolved to be perfect innovators. Perhaps it is time for the Kryvax to evolve again. Riley stepped forward, extending his hand in the ancient human gesture of partnership. Welcome to the next stage of evolution, one where being apex predators means leading the way in building things, not just destroying them. As the Supreme Hunter extended its own limb, to complete the gesture, Earth's sun crested the planet's edge, illuminating the chamber in golden light. In that moment, the galaxy witnessed something unprecedented, the dawn of an era where the most dangerous predators in space learned something humans had known all along. The ultimate expression of power isn't the ability to kill, but the wisdom to know when to make peace. Together, Riley said, we'll show the galaxy why the most successful hunters in history were the ones who learned to build packs, not just dominate them.